The Galactic Council was vast and powerful. It ruled over 1,000 worlds, controlled by the strongest empires in the galaxy. Among them, the Celtrax Empire stood at the top. Their warriors were feared across the stars. Their fleets had crushed countless civilizations. To them, war was the ultimate measure of strength. And then there were the humans, a small, fragile species from a single planet. They had technology, but they rarely used it for war. They built ships, but most were for trade or exploration. Their soldiers, scattered, barely seen. Humanity avoided war at all costs. To the Celtrax, this was proof of weakness. Grand General Xortal, leader of the Celtrax forces, sneered as he watched the hologram in the council chamber. A human ambassador stood before the gathered leaders, his face calm, his voice steady. "We ask for peace," the ambassador said. "Humanity does not wish for war." Xortal growled. "Of course you don't, because you know you cannot win." The other alien leaders chuckled. The humans had refused to fight in past conflicts. Even when insulted, they walked away. Even when their colonies were threatened, they negotiated. What kind of species did not defend its honor? But the ambassador remained firm. "You misunderstand. It is not because we cannot fight. It is because we do not want to." Xortal slammed his fist on the table. "Then you will surrender to us. The weak must bow to the strong." The human sighed. "You do not want this war. You truly don't." The council chamber fell silent. For a moment, Xortal felt something strange. A warning. No, it had to be a bluff. "Your threats are meaningless," he growled. "Your species is weak. You hide behind words because you know you will be crushed." The ambassador looked at him, just looked. Then he simply said, "If you declare war on us, you will understand why we avoid it." With that, the human turned and left the chamber. The aliens laughed. To them, the outcome was already decided. The humans had no warriors, no true fleets, no history of great battles. The war would be over in days. They had no idea what they had just done. The Celtrax Empire wasted no time. The moment the Galactic Council session ended, their fleets moved. It was a simple plan: attack the human colonies, force their surrender, and claim Earth as another conquered world. The Celtrax had done this 100 times before. This was nothing new. Admiral Crix of the Celtrax war fleet sat in his command chair, watching the holographic map. The human colonies were lightly defended, their ships scattered. He smirked. "Too easy." "Admiral, our scout ships have reached the first target," reported one of his officers. "And minimal defenses, some orbital stations, a few civilian vessels. No military presence detected." Crix chuckled. "Proceed with the attack. Show them what true power looks like." The Celtrax fleet moved in. Warships, massive and heavily armed, descended upon the colony world of Vega 4. Human transmissions were sent, begging for peace. The Celtrax ignored them. "Destroy their communications. We will take this world by force," Crix ordered. The attack began. Orbital bombardments rained down on the surface. Buildings collapsed. Fires spread. The Celtrax soldiers landed on the ground, ready to subdue the population. It was just as easy as they had expected. Or so they thought. At first, everything seemed normal. The humans surrendered quickly. Civilians dropped their weapons, raised their hands. The Celtrax rounded them up, forcing them into containment zones. Then the problems began. One of the Celtrax officers, Captain Torva, entered a control center to check the colony's data systems. He expected to find security logs, supply records, nothing special. Instead, he found something odd. A classified file, hidden deep in the system. Its title sent a chill down his spine. "Do note JG, Operation Scorched Earth." Torva frowned. He opened the file. And then he felt true fear. His hands trembled as he read the information. His eyes widened in horror. He turned to the nearest communication console and shouted, "Admiral Crix, we have made a mistake." The screen went black. The power in the entire colony shut down. The lights flickered, then died. And then, in the distance, a sound echoed through the city. A deep mechanical hum. The Celtrax soldiers turned, weapons ready. A voice spoke through the colony's remaining speakers. Calm, cold, human. You wanted war. Now you will see why we avoid it. The Celtrax felt something they had never felt before. Admiral Crix sat frozen in his command chair, staring at the darkened screen. The colony's power grid had shut down, cutting off all surveillance feeds. Communication with ground forces was lost. This wasn't how an invasion was supposed to go. "Restore the connection," he barked. The bridge crew scrambled to comply, but nothing worked. "Admiral," an officer said, his voice shaking. "Something is jamming our signals, but it's not coming from the human systems. It's something else." Crix narrowed his eyes. "Explain." The officer hesitated. "We don't know. It's adaptive. Every time we try to break through, it changes frequency. It's almost like..." Before he could finish, alarms blared. "Incoming transmission," another officer shouted. The main screen flickered. For a moment, static filled the display. Then an image appeared, grainy, distorted, but unmistakable. A human face. But this wasn't the ambassador. This man had sharp eyes, a hardened expression, and a scar running down the side of his face. He wore a dark uniform, one that was unfamiliar to the Celtrax. "This is General Erickson of the Terran Defense Force," the man said, his voice steady and cold. "I assume you've realized your mistake." Crix sneered. "We have conquered your colony. Your people are already in our hands. You think a single man can stop us?" Erickson's expression didn't change. "You haven't conquered anything." As he spoke, red warning lights flared across the Celtrax fleet's control panels. Officers scrambled to analyze the sudden surge in energy readings. Then, without warning, the Celtrax warship's engines failed. "Admiral, our thrusters. Weapons are offline. Shields are collapsing." Crix shot to his feet. "What is happening?" Erickson tilted his head slightly. "You attacked Vega 4 because you thought it was just another colony." He leaned forward. "It's not. On the planet's surface, deep underground, hidden facilities powered up. Enormous doors, ones that had remained sealed for centuries, hissed open. The ground trembled. And then the Celtrax saw it. Rising from beneath the planet, towering over the ruins of the city, stood war machines unlike anything the Celtrax had ever encountered. Massive armored titans, painted in dark steel. Their eyes glowed red. Human war machines. Mechs built for total annihilation. "Welcome to humanity's true nature," Erickson said. "We don't start wars. The mechs raise their weapons. We end them." Admiral Crix watched in horror as the war machines rose from the surface of Vega 4. They were massive, towering steel behemoths with thick armor and glowing red optics. Their presence alone sent shivers through the Celtrax officers. This isn't possible," one of Crix's bridge officers whispered. "Humans don't have war machines like these." But they did. The Celtrax had always believed humanity was weak because they avoided war. Now they were realizing the truth. Humans didn't fight because when they didn't just win. They destroyed. On the surface, the captured human civilians suddenly changed. A moment ago, they had been helpless prisoners. Now, they moved with purpose. Some overpowered their guards with terrifying efficiency, disarming them in seconds. Others activated hidden devices, small, seemingly harmless objects that turned into deadly weapons. The Celtrax had walked into a trap. The first mech fired. A massive plasma cannon, the size of a Celtrax dropship, unleashed a blinding beam of destruction. The blast tore through the Celtrax ground forces, turning armored vehicles into molten wrecks. Another mech moved forward. It stepped, shaking the earth. Gatling cannons spun to life, spitting hypervelocity rounds that shredded enemy soldiers like paper. The Celtrax panicked. "Fall back! Fall back!" A commander screamed over the comms. It was too late. From underground bunkers, hidden human soldiers poured out. Black armored figures with weapons far deadlier than anything the Celtrax had seen before. These weren't ordinary human troops. These were death squads. The elite warriors of the Terran Defense Force. The ones who only came out when humanity had no other choice. They moved like ghosts, weaving through the battlefield with inhuman precision. Celtrax soldiers barely had time to react before they were gunned down. On board the Celtrax flagship, Admiral Crix clenched his fists. This wasn't an invasion anymore. This was a massacre of his own troops. "Admiral, we must retreat," an officer pleaded. Crix snarled. "No, we are the Celtrax. We do not run from weaklings." Then the ship shook violently, a direct hit. "Admiral, enemy artillery from the surface. Our shields are failing." On the main screen, General Erickson appeared again. His expression was blank. "You started this war," he said. "Now we finish it." The Celtrax had made a fatal mistake. They thought humanity was weak. Now, they were learning what happened when humans stopped holding back. And it was only the beginning. Admiral Crix could no longer deny the truth. The Celtrax fleet was trapped. Their engines were dead. Their weapons were useless. Their ground forces, once proud warriors, were being wiped out by the terrifying human war machines. The humans had led them into a perfect ambush. "Admiral, we have to call for reinforcements," an officer shouted. "The humans." "I know," Crix roared, slamming his fist on his command console. His sharp teeth ground together as he stared at the battlefield below. He had thought this would be an easy conquest. Instead, his forces were being obliterated. On the surface, the slaughter continued. The mechs crushed everything in their path. Human soldiers, their black armor streaked with alien blood, moved through the battlefield with terrifying precision. They weren't just fighting. They were hunting. The Celtrax had fought hundreds of species. They had seen warriors, mercenaries, warlords, but they had never seen this. The humans fought with an eerie calm. They didn't scream in battle. They didn't hesitate. They didn't celebrate their kills. They just eliminated. It was as if they had done this before. Many times. Crix turned to his officers. "How many ships are still operational?" A panicked officer responded. "Only 3, Admiral." The humans disabled the rest. Crix growled. "Prepare them for immediate retreat." "Admiral, incoming message from the humans." The bridge fell silent. On the screen, General Erickson appeared once more. His eyes were cold, calculating. "Running away, Admiral?" Erickson asked. Crix bared his fangs. "You think you've won. The Celtrax Empire is vast. We will return with more fleets, more warriors." Erickson tilted his head. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." Before Crix could respond, the screen changed. A new image appeared, one that made every Celtrax officer freeze in fear. A map of the galaxy. A red line traced across dozens of star systems. Crix's eyes widened. What is this?" Erickson's voice was quiet, almost amused. "This is a list of every empire that thought humans were weak. Every civilization that believed we would not fight back." The red line stretched further. Star systems, entire sectors, marked with a single word, "Exterminated." "You think this is the first time someone tried to conquer us?" Erickson continued. "It's not. The others learned too late." The Celtrax officers shivered. Crix's throat went dry. "You're lying." Erickson simply smiled. "Am I?" Then the humans launched their final strike. Hidden warships, long buried beneath the colony, emerged from the ground. Black, jagged, and deadly, they fired all at once. Devastating beams of energy ripped through the last remaining Celtrax warships. Admiral Crix watched as his entire fleet, was turned into glowing wreckage. The battle was over. The Celtrax had come believing humans were weak. Now, they saw the truth. Humanity didn't avoid war because they were afraid. They avoided war because when they fought, they erased their enemies. And the worst part, this was just one human colony. What would happen if they angered all of Earth? Admiral Crix knelt on the shattered bridge of his flagship. Smoke filled the air. Sparks rained from damaged consoles. The once mighty Celtrax war fleet was no more. Nothing but burning debris drifting in space. The humans had done the impossible. They had destroyed an entire invasion force without losing a single warship. Crix had never felt fear before, but now his hands trembled. His mind raced. He had to warn the Celtrax High Command. They needed to understand, this was no ordinary enemy. "Admiral, the fleet, it's gone," one of his surviving officers whispered. Crix didn't respond. He was staring at the screen, where General Erickson still watched him with cold, calculating eyes. "You invaded our colony," Erickson said. "You killed our people. You thought we were weak." The screen flickered, showing images, ruined cities, massacred civilians. Not human cities, not human civilians. Alien worlds. Crix's breathing grew unsteady. What am I looking at? Evidence. Erickson leaned forward. "You thought humanity was peaceful, that we had never fought before." He shook his head. "We fought before the Celtrax even existed, before most of the galaxy even knew how to build a starship. And every time we fought, we didn't just win. The images change, ruined battlefields, glassed planets, lifeless moons where once thriving civilizations had stood. We erased them." Crix felt his blood turn to ice. "But we learned something," Erickson continued. "War is too easy for us, too natural. We realized that if we kept fighting, there would be nothing left. So we made a choice." The screen zoomed out, revealing a map of human-controlled space. "We isolated ourselves. We built rules. We chose peace." Then, the screen shifted back to Erickson's face. His expression was like stone. "But when someone like you comes along and forces our hand, we remember what we are." Silence. For the first time in his life, Admiral Crix felt true, undeniable dread. "You will return to your empire," Erickson said. "You will tell them what happened here. You will tell them to stay away from humanity." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "Because next time, we won't let you leave." Crix swallowed hard. He had no choice. The Celtrax Empire had to know the truth. The humans were not weak. They were not peaceful. They were a nightmare waiting to wake up. And if the galaxy pushed them too far, it would burn. Admiral Crix's damaged escape shuttle limped through space, carrying him back to Celtrax-controlled territory. The once proud warrior sat in silence, staring blankly at the stars. His mind replayed everything. The destruction of his fleet, the terrifying human war machines, and General Erickson's final warning. The Celtrax warlords sat in their grand chamber, expecting Admiral Crix to deliver a strategic report. Instead, they got something far more terrifying. A broken commander. Crix knelt before them, his eyes haunted. "We must never fight the humans again." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The warlords sneered. "You would have us fear primitives." One scoffed. "We have crushed 100 empires." Another bellowed. "Why should we run from a species that refuses war?" Crix took a deep breath. "Because the humans do not refuse war out of weakness." He looked up, his voice barely above a whisper. "They refuse it out of mercy." The warlords fell silent. Crix continued, his voice trembling. "They did not just defeat us. They destroyed us, without effort, without emotion, and they could have done worse. He turned, activating a hologram. The warlords gasped. On the screen was a timeline, one showing species that had disappeared throughout history, civilizations wiped out with no trace, worlds rendered uninhabitable, their names erased from records. And in every case, there was one common factor. Each of those long-lost civilizations had once tried to invade Earth. Crix faced the warlords. The humans did not conquer them. They did not enslave them. They removed them from existence. The council chamber felt colder than the void itself. Then an alert blared. A galactic transmission. The warlords turned to the screen. The message was spreading. Fast. Hundreds of species, thousands of empires, all watching the same report. That Celtrax invasion of Vega 4 had failed. That Celtrax fleet was destroyed. And humanity had held back. Across the galaxy, leaders and warlords saw the message. They saw what had happened, and they understood. Humanity was not to be touched, not to be provoked. The warning spread like wildfire. And for the first time in galactic history, the empires that once ruled with terror felt fear. The fear of waking something far, far worse. The truth was undeniable now. Humanity wasn't weak. They were worse than the galaxy's greatest warlords, because unlike other conquerors, humans didn't crave war. They avoided it, not out of cowardice, but because if they ever embraced it, the galaxy itself might not survive.